demonstration. Last demonstration, we made this in part 1. And one of the things that I realized as I was going through my box is that we had some skinny ribbon in it that you could have used for this binding. So if you want to remake it with the skinny ribbon, because you think it might look a little nicer, go right ahead, that's fine. At any rate, you know how to do the sewing, so you can use whatever you like that you can actually get through the signatures and through the eye of your needle. All right. So today we are going to build on what we know and make something a little more complex. So here's our handout. This is not something that we've described, but this account book is a really simple, straightforward sewing that you might want to try on your own. As I turn through this third page has the directions for the ledger that we made. This is the 3-hole ledger. And that builds upon this binding, which is, instead of 3 holes, it is 4 holes, but it also has this little fancy business at the corners, all right? We're not gonna make that. We're gonna jump right into the next slightly more complex binding, which is the hemp leaf binding, okay? We are also going to do the tortoiseshell binding. So I just wanted you to have the right orientation for this handout as you try to make things on your own. Now this is a little bit more complex, and its complexity has everything to do with its decorative nature. It has less to do with structure, all right? So these are some fancy little bindings here for sure, the way this is sewn. One of the things I'm just gonna remind you about is the plus of stab bindings is that you have single pages that you can just stack, but the minus is that you lose part of those pages. So as you are designing your books, make sure you allow for enough space here, not just for the sewing, but also for how the pages will end up turning throughout the entire book, all right? That depends upon the thickness of your paper, how these turn. This is really thin paper, so there's not a lot of space being taken up, but if you had a thicker paper, there most certainly would be. So just keep that in your mind. Now, to create this, we need to have a jig, all right? So this is a jig that we're going to be making today. This is another version of it, and I'm gonna show it to you, so if you wanna go back and look at the measurements, you can. That being said, I'm gonna walk you through the whole thing. So you've been provided with a little piece of paper. It is the same height as this book. And that's what you want. We're gonna create 2 rows for our signatures, or rather, excuse me, our stations. Stations are our holes. And I'm gonna start by creating one that is about a 1/2 inch from what I'm determining is gonna be the edge of the book. So choose a side, it's all the same, it's gonna be the same, so that's a 1/2 inch. And then I'm gonna do another that is a full inch from the edge. So 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, okay? All right, now we need to have an even number here and an odd number here. So for our purposes, we are going to have 4 stations on this interior row. So, I mean, this one is our interior, this is our exterior, and this is the edge of the book, all right? So I'll make a little arrow there so it's easier for us to remember. So right now we're looking at this one, and this is gonna need to be an even number. This is gonna need to be an odd number. I tell you this simply because you might wanna make a bigger book that needs better structure or support than just this, all right? So it might be that you do a book that has 7 stations and 6 stations, 9 stations and 8 stations, that kind of thing. But for our purposes today, we are gonna have 4 stations and 5 stations. And we're gonna figure out this first. How you figure this out has everything to do with the kind of pattern that you're making. So remember, again, aside from some details, this is less about structure and more about how it aesthetically looks. So here, because this is 4 1/4, about 4 1/4, there's not a really neat and tidy way of figuring out these measurements. So I've gone ahead and figured them out for us. Going forward, you will want to figure them out for yourself. Okay, so interior right here. I already have figured this out, that this first stop needs to be 5/8. Now you can roll your eyes, but some folks don't know how to read a ruler very well. And I know that's not you. I know you had great teachers, but I have encountered more and more students that don't really understand what these lines mean, okay? So this is 1 inch, right? 1 inch. That's a 1/2 inch. Everyone can figure that one out probably. And then this is a 1/4 inch. It gets a little more complicated as we start looking at our ruler, because our ruler is, you know, kind of overwhelming in terms of all these little lines. Okay, so 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1 inch. All of these little lines, these tiny lines, are a 1/16 of an inch. And then the little lines that are in between are 1/8 of an inch. So 1/8 of an inch is exactly what it sounds like. It's an inch divided into 8 different parts. So that's what I'm going to be referring to mostly, 1/8 of an inch. This is 5/8. So we know that 4/8 is probably 1/2 an inch. Not probably, it is a 1/2 an inch. So we're going to add one of these little lines here, these double lines. So what does that mean? And if I'm insulting your intelligence, I apologize. I get it, but you know what? I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Okay, so 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 of an inch, and then a little bit here. This is 5/8. So that's what 5/8 is going to look like for us. I like to work from the edges so that things are even that way. However you want to do is fine, you know, but that's what I like. So in other words, I worked from this side and then I'm working from this side. Okay? In between the 5/8, we have approximately 3 inches, depending on how you measured and how accurate that was. So this should be 3 inches in between, okay? So I'm going to mark 1 inch, boop, and I'm starting here, and then another inch, the 2 inch mark, so that this is 5/8, this is a full inch, this is a full inch, this is a full inch, and this is 5/8. Now, if this is starting to make you feel funky, you should probably pause this and just look at it, right? So I've got 4 stations that I've indicated with this little round blob here. These are my measurements. This means 1, 1, 1. This means 5/8. Okay, moving on. This outer row is going to be 3/8. That's how we're going to start. So 3/8 is the little line before a 1/2 an inch. Boop, 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 boop. And I'm going to start it right there. What I'm aiming to do is to have this come in a little bit. So here we are. This is the row that we're working on now. This is 3/8, and that's the move that this is going to make, okay? From here, I have 3/4 of an inch, and then this is an inch, this is an inch, this is 3/4 again. Not neat and tidy. So it's the best I can do with the measurements that we have. And, you know, your book might not be neat and tidy either. So this is 3/4. And then in between that is about 2 inches. My measurement's a little bit off, but there it goes. And this is right in the middle. So I've established my odd number of signatures. This is 5, this is 4. Let's see. . 1, Forgive the wonky handwriting. There we go. So there you go. That's what we're going to be doing. So even number, odd number, edge of book. Okay. Now I gave you fancy paper, right? But I'm not going to use fancy paper. I'm going to use plain old paper because I want to make sure you can see this. So I'm going to just take some of the paper that I was provided, and right out of the gate you're going to say, huh, this is considerably longer. That's by design. This is going to be our turn-in. So basically what you need to figure out, these are scraps from old prints of mine, so I'm going to maybe do one on the outside. This is General Hooker. She was a general in the Union Army. Okay, let's see. Where does Hooker look better? Okay. So I'm tapping this together. I'm jogging the pages together. So this is flush at this side. This is the side that I'm going to be folding under, and I want to get them all together in place and trap them with a bull clip or a clothespin. I know you have at least one bull clip because I put it in your box, so use it and we will move forward. All right, now I said we're making this a 1/2 inch from the edge. Of course, you could have made it any size that you wanted it to be, but you have to keep in mind, of course, that you're gonna lose that amount with pages. I would never go more than, I wouldn't go any smaller than a 1/2 inch here, because then you're gonna run the risk of your edges tearing, and it's just structurally not so great. Now, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna tap these holes or stations in with our hammer and our awl. And I'm wondering, this is an experiment. I'm gonna see if doing this on a piece of wood makes this shake less, but brace yourself for the camera shaking, because I think it's gonna happen. Okay, we're being gentle with this, right? We're not being really mean to it, but on the other hand, we're not being a wimp either. We are telling it who's boss, but not breaking it. Okay, so I just hammered that into wood, and I actually found that to be better than hammering directly into this or your cutting mat. Of course, you need to have something on the other side, because guess what? If you hammer into your kitchen table, your dining room table, you're gonna be super unpopular in your house. So let's keep everyone happy. So I'm putting all of the stations in. I like to do this from the front, because what happens is the pages get pushed out, and they get pushed out towards the back, which is better than having them pushed out towards the front. I'll show you what I mean. See how that's pushed back? And this is pushed in. Now these holes are not big enough for me, so I'm gonna just kind of work them a little bit, because I know I have to sew into these holes, and I have to get my needle in multiple times. So I am going to just coax them to be a little bit bigger, and I could do that from both sides. Now, as we mentioned before, if you have a drill, you could use that, but if you do that, of course, drill into something like a piece of wood, hold onto your pages, and then drill straight down. If you don't hold onto your pages, it'll spin, and that's no good. And you also, of course, need to use a very small drill bit. So that's another question. Okay, so here we are. We are ready to sew. I think I'm gonna use this hot pink, this fuchsia, to use as my thread so that you can see it. All right. Well, you know what I should do first? I should measure this. So we want this to be 7 times the height of this book. It's not because of the signatures. We're not counting signatures this time like we did with the hardback book. with multi-signatures. We are going to do this 7 lengths because of all this fanciness that needs to go on. We need to have enough thread to accommodate it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I always like to throw in a little extra so I'm not stuck with my pants down. All right, this is not waxed. You can choose to wax yours. Might be a little easier. I'm not doing it because I'm in my studio. I don't think I have any wax around. I'm gonna thread my needle. So any needle will do that will accommodate your thread. That said, it shouldn't be a super thick needle because you have to go through these holes. So nothing like a plastic needle or anything like that. Okay, we are gonna start our sewing. And again, this is this design, which is the hemp leaf. We're gonna start our sewing on the interior row, all right? And we're gonna start in the middle. Like before, wherever we start is where we're gonna end. In the directions, they show a move where you can slip your thread through here, the edge of the book. I find that to be a bit cumbersome, so I don't like teaching that, but you can try it. Sometimes things are cumbersome for one person and not for another, so you might have a different opinion than me. All right, so right out of the gate, I've got this, all right? I can't do my fancy needle threading move because this thread, it'll just fray apart, so we can't do that. Okay, so I'm holding on to it so it doesn't slip out. I'm gonna go through the same hole, same station. When I say station, it's the same thing as hole. So I went around the edge of this book. Now, it really doesn't matter what direction I go in, okay? So that being said, I guess I'll go in this direction. So I'm on the back of the book. I'm gonna go right into the adjacent hole on the same row that I'm in. And look at this knot. Oh, frustrating. Let's see if I can get it out. Yay, okay. Okay, so what I've got here, it's like a little L, depending on your point of view. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go around the edge of the book, the outside of the book, and I'm gonna go right back into that hole. Okay, so I'm back on the front, and what I'm going to do now is I'm gonna square this off. So I'm gonna go around this part of the book, the edge of the book here, and right back into that same hole again. All right, now I'm going to pay a little bit of attention to this row, but it's temporary because I'm just gonna work out this corner. And what I wanna do is I want to square off this corner. So I'm gonna sew diagonally. So you can see what I've done there. Then I'm gonna sew right back into that hole. Right? And then I'm gonna go around the edge. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a little square within my square that's connected by this diagonal, all right? So I'm on the back of the book now. I'm right here, all right? And so the next move is gonna be right back down to that interior row. So this is what I'm doing. I'm making a diagonal, and I'm coming through. I lost my needle there, so I'm gonna re-thread this thread. Come on, thread. Flatten it out, there it goes. Yay. All right, next move, I'm gonna go over here, all right? So right over here. Okay, now I'm back on the front, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Let's tighten this up a wee bit. And I'm gonna go right over here. And actually I'm on the back. And I'm gonna do the same move. I'm gonna go around the edge of the book, right back into the same hole. This is a complex sewing. So if you find yourself stuck, stop. stop the video and just work your way through it. You may want to do it on your own after we do this, again, if you really want it to stick. All right, so here we are. I'm gonna go over here, and I'm gonna do the same thing that I did on this side. So I'm gonna go around here into that station. Okay, and I'm gonna square it off by going around the edge of the book here. Again, right back into that hole. Now I'm gonna make my little square within a square. I'm going to go, oops, I'm on the back, so I better go diagonally here, right? And I'm going to make another little square by wrapping the thread around there, wrapping the thread around here. And back in there. That's what it looks like on the back. My thread is on the front, and my next move is going to be to go right back into that hole, finishing the diagonal. And incidentally, the purpose of wax is so that your thread is less likely to tangle. So that's why I was suggesting that might be something you want to do. Okay, so here I am on the back. I'm going to go up into that diagonal, or up into this row. I'm gonna go around, whoop. Okay, I'm going to come down. I just want to show you what I'm doing. I'm gonna go across, and then I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna do it from the other side. So I'm here, whoops, look at that. That's just because it got caught on the side. Don't let that fool you in thinking it's a real stitch, because it's not. Okay, so here I am on the front again. I'm gonna go back into this hole. All right, so there I am. I'm on the back. I'm gonna go diagonal back into this hole. All right, then I'm gonna go diagonal into that hole. I'm gonna go around this edge. Yoink. Okay, I'm on the back. I'm gonna go this way, not this way, to finish what I started. All right, look at that. It happened again, got caught on the edge. Confusing. All right, here I am. I'm going to go over here. So here. I'm going to go back into this hole. So this is what the back looks like, and this is what the front looks like. There's a logic to it, but it's easy to lose your step, and it might be something you want to do a couple of times to really cement it into your memory. I lost my thread again. So frustrating. Oh, and it's all fraying now. Okay. I am on the back. I'm gonna go over here to this diagonal. Yoink. Around. All right, oops, let me pull that tight so it makes some sense. So here I am on the back. Here I am on the front. And what I want to do is I want to move down, and I'll come out of this hole and find that this is the only spot that needs to be filled, so I'm gonna fill it. And look at this nice pattern on the back. Beautiful. Okay, and so here I am on the front. I'm not going to be sewing into any holes. What I'm going to do now is just sew under the thread right by this loose piece, like that. And now I'm going to tie a nice knot. And if I don't think one knot's enough, which it probably is not, haha, I will do another one. Now, this is not symmetrical, which may or may not irk you. I find it irksome, so I'm just gonna cut this pretty short so that this isn't a focal point. And here I am. I have completed my hemp leaf binding. Hooray, hooray. Okay, so I'm gonna take my little bull clip off, and looky, this is too long. That's fine. We can handle it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open the book and let my pages be flat. All right, I'm gonna take my bone folder. I only have about 50 of them. Bone folders, where are you? We're probably in your box. Oh, such a frustration. Now you're hearing some funky noise. That funky noise, here's my box, is one of my neighbors. Look at all these bone folders. I made sure I had a hammer this time, but the bone folder, I failed. Ugh, failure. Okay, so this is open. Not a bad idea to use a ruler on top of this, but basically what we're gonna be doing is creating whoop, a straight line where the pages fall. Now, you may decide that you want a little bit of a lip here, right? I don't really see the need to have a lip when you have the edges of the book flush with the top and bottom. And incidentally, they have to be flush with the top and bottom to accommodate this kind of sewing. So that's totally up to you what you want, but this is what I want. So I've made my little crease mark, and now I'm gonna fold it in and flatten it out. Now it's nice. Okay, now I'm gonna close this part of the book, flip it over, and I'm gonna do the same thing. This is the easiest way I know of making things even. Okay. This is the front of my book. This is the back of my book. This is the inside. Now these little turn-ins, the function of them is so that this is stronger where it's gonna get the most handling, right at the edge. You might want to glue down your first page under that lip, or glue down your lip on its own, or glue down your lip and then glue that on top. It's totally up to you how you want to handle this. I'm not going to do any gluing down.